Hello. This is like a little different from what I've done before. It's something I really like doing, and that is reading and watching movies. I know those don't exactly go together, but they're something that I like track every year and something that I really like spending my free time doing. So I figured, honestly, this video is more for me than like anybody watching it, because I think it'll be really fun to like look back on and see what I read and watched in 2021. I'm gonna go over all the books I read this year, all the movies I watched this year. I think I read like 31 books and 75 movies, which is actually really low for me. Like the first year of quarantine, so 2020, 148 I watched in 2020. So like literally half of that, or almost half of that this year. Anyways, I'm just gonna get started. So I'll start with books because that is a shorter list. I have my computer here that has like everything written down. So I have a Goodreads and a Storygraph. I tried switching over to Storygraph from Goodreads, but Storygraph is just like not 100% user friendly. So I'm still kind of using both right now. I'll put links in the description for like both my accounts if you want to follow me. Okay, so a weird start. The first book I finished was Contemporary Plays by African American Women, 10 Complete Works. And the reason I read this was because it was required reading for my ethnic study class, and this anthology is actually edited by my professor, so it was her piece of work. So we read like probably like 5 or 6 of the pieces in class, and then I just finished reading the rest of them. And I didn't give it I didn't give it a rating because it was like my professor's book and it just felt like a weird thing to rate, and like there's so many different pieces. Anyway, so that didn't have a rating. I grabbed some of the books. Sorry, I'm not a booktuber. I don't know how to do these things. Then I read The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is kind of a different edition because I got it in an Owl Crate box. So I know it looks a little different from like if you buy it in a store, and I'm pretty sure this is signed as well because it's a Owl Crate book. Yeah, so this is a signed, I don't know if you can even see that. This is a signed copy too, and I gave this 4 stars. And then I read the second book in the series, which is this one, which is The Wicked King, right? Yeah, Wicked King, and I gave this 5 stars, which is hard to get from me, but I remember specifically reading these books so fast. Like I was in the middle of the semester and I didn't have time to be reading, but I was so addicted I read them so quickly. So then the last one I read is The Queen of Nothing, which is the 3rd and final book, and I gave this one 5 stars as well. And then I read a bunch of books for class. So the first one I read was Benito Cereno, which is by Herman Melville, the guy who wrote Moby Dick, and I gave that 3 stars. And then I read Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, which I really recommend if you like want to read a classic. It's not an easy one, but there is a free audiobook on Spotify, which I listen to a lot, and it's like relatively understandable English. I thought it was good, so I gave that 3 stars, which again, I usually rate on the harsher side. Okay, and then I read the autobiography of Ben Franklin, which now I know way too much about Ben Franklin. Like no one needs to know as much about Ben Franklin as I know about Ben Franklin, because I took a class that was on like the history of making books basically, and Ben Franklin like owned a printing press. Anyways, you don't really care. I didn't rate that one either. And then I read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is like a really skinny book, and I gave that 4 stars. And that's by Robert Louis Stevenson. And then I read this, and I actually have a reading vlog on this if you are interested on like more in-depth feelings about this book. I read this with my roommate Taylor. This is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. My dog's barking and I apologize. And I gave this 2 stars, but there's a lot of debate over it. The characters are like my favorite part about it. It's like definitely a good book, but again, so many trigger warnings. If you're considering this book, read the trigger warnings. Okay, and then I read As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner for class, and I gave it 2 stars. And then I read Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid, and I gave this 5 stars. I also read this for class, but I thought it was really good. I super highly recommend reading this book. I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, so please don't roast me. I read Disgrace by J.M. Coetzee. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but this one also has trigger warnings, so be careful before picking this one up. And then I read a bunch of Shakespeare because I took a Shakespeare class, so I'm just gonna rattle through a bunch of Shakespeare really quick. I read Lucrece, Titus Andronicus, The Comedy of Errors, Venus and Adonis, King Henry VI Part 1, 2, and 3. Pretty sure that's it. And then King Richard III. That's all the Shakespeare I read. I read a lot of Shakespeare. I read The Professor's House by Willa Cather, and I gave it 3 stars, but I definitely need to reconsider that rating because I think about that book all the time now. It's a really good book. It's like about a broody professor, and it's like really not long. I think it could honestly be considered a classic, and I just really liked it. Then I read Giovanni's Room, which is also considered a classic, and I really liked that one, but I also gave it 3 stars. But I would recommend reading that one too. It's by James Baldwin, and it's about a gay man like accepting his sexuality while living in Paris, but he's from America. America, but he's living in Paris, meeting this other man named Giovanni, and just kind of like dealing with his sexuality in a time where like really difficult to exist as an LGBTQ plus person. And then I read Love Hypothesis. This is like the first romance I've read in a really long time. I think I read this in like 2 days. I gave it 3 stars, but it's like super fast, super light read. The only reason I didn't give it more is because it's like there's not much depth to it. And then I read Roxana by Daniel Defoe for class again, and I gave that 2 stars. And lastly, I read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, and I gave that 2 stars. So that's everything I read in 2021. I believe that's 31 books. So not a bad reading year, but most of it was for school, so I'd like to do more reading for like myself in this upcoming year. Okay, and then moving on to movies, I write them all in this like little journal thing. This is a 75 movie list, so I am just gonna like rattle through them because it's gonna take way too long otherwise to go over every single one. I also just want to say there's like repeats in here if I like rewatched a movie, which is common. I wrote it again. I don't mean to keep plugging, but I do talk or like review or whatever movies on Letterboxd. Okay, most of them are usually just jokes. They're not like in-depth reviews, but if you're interested in that, you can check me out on there. I'll also put that in the description. Okay, movies. Number 1, Moonrise Kingdom, La La Land, 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, To All the Boys 2, don't know if there's another name for that, Oliver and Company, don't even know what that is. Is that a Disney movie? I don't know, I'm assuming I watched that in like January. To All the Boys, Always and Forever, La La Land again, The Hunger Games Catching Fire, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and then I never got around to watching Part 2, which is like really silly and didn't think about that till right now. So maybe I need to watch Part 2. The Kissing Booth, Divergent, The Maze Runner, Operation Varsity Blues, which is a doc, which is like, it's a doc on you know, the whole Varsity Blues things, like the parents who paid for their kids to get into like Ivy Leagues, which is interesting. And then Remember Me, which is like the most out-of-pocket movie I've seen in a long time. If you've never seen Remember Me, just go watch it, but like don't expect much. It's like one of those like ones, it's Robert Pattinson, where it's like sometimes Robert Pattinson does the most like out-of-pocket movies, and it's so funny. And then I watched Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry, which is her doc, I think on Apple TV, which I actually really liked. It was like very inspiring, and I really liked Billie Eilish. And then I watched The Greatest Showman, and then Jojo Rabbit, Fruitvale Station, The Social Dilemma, After We Collided, Love, Simon, The Social Network, Minari, Seaspiracy, If Anything Happens I Love You, which is like a really short, sad short film on Netflix. And it won awards. I don't remember if it was an Oscar or what, but I know it won awards. Pitch Perfect 3, The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is another good movie, Moneyball, Knives Out, Call Me By Your Name, which is like my favorite movie, Finding Nemo, random, Friends with Benefits, 50 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades Darker and 50 Shades Freed, Spotlight, A Quiet Place 2, which is like the first movie I saw back in theaters in like a really long time. This is Inside, but I'm assuming I mean Bo Burnham's Inside. In the Heights, Cherry, which I did not like, Luca, which I loved, Bo Burnham's Inside. And then I watched Bo Burnham Make Happy, which is like a comedy special, Legally Blonde, which I watched for the first time, Beautiful Boy, The Kissing Booth 3, He's All That, which was so bad, Dear Evan Hansen, The Guilty, Justin Bieber Our World, which we went and saw at our like college theater because one of my roommates is obsessed with Justin Bieber, Dune, Birds of Paradise, The Lodge, Dead Poet Society, which was the first time I watched Dead Poet Society and I loved it, I, Tonya, King Richard, The Unforgivable, which was like surprisingly very good. I will watch anything that Viola Davis is in. I love Viola Davis. Tick Tick Boom, which for me was kind of a disappointment. I love Andrew Garfield, but I had higher expectations. Then I watched Bo Burnham Inside again, which is a little unhinged. If you've watched it, I'm aware of this, at least I'm like cognizant, okay? The Santa Claus, and then the Santa Claus again, and then the Santa Claus 2, and then the Santa Claus 3, The Escape. As you can tell, we've entered Christmas territory. Arthur Christmas, White Christmas, How to Train Your Dragon 2, which is, I'm so shocked that that hasn't showed up more on here. Spider-Man No Way Home, which I really, really liked. That was like a really good movie for me. And then lastly, Draft Day. And that is all the movies I watched in 2021. My goal for 2022 is 30 books, which I've already read 1, and then 100 movies, which I've watched 2. That is my summary. I'm hoping to watch more new movies this year and less rewatches because I love watching movies and reading books. Just make me feel like inspired. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully in like 10 years I'll come watch this video again, or maybe before next year I'll watch it again. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.